Hey there. Subscribe to my channel. And also press this bell icon, so you never miss any new updates, cause whenever we upload new video you will get a notification on your phone.
Now, you know, Mr. Chairman, we had high expectations of this bill. I note that earlier this year it was none other than our esteemed Prime Minister who had raised a word of warning to financial and regulatory authorities on the increasing number of financial fraud and fugitive economic offenders. And to quote our PM, he said, "I want to make an appeal to those who have been entrusted with the job of framing rules and policies and maintaining ethics to do their job diligently and with dedication." These are the Prime Minister's words. Now, these are promising words, and we in the Congress Party had hoped that perhaps for at least one time in these 4 years, the present ruling dispensation would actually come through on a commitment. But as usual, Honourable Deputy Speaker, as has been the legacy of this government, there remains a significant gap between the rhetoric of its leadership and the reality that is suggested by the nature of the bill before us today. In the last few years, we've seen a string of businessmen flee the country after allegedly defrauding numerous creditors, especially public sector banks, under the watch of the very men who promised to be the watchmen, the chowkidars of India today. The magnitude of the crisis is seen by a response of the Ministry of External Affairs in the Lok Sabha, which has itself admitted that in March this year, India had the woeful record of having 31 fugitive economic offenders who had collectively robbed the honest taxpayer of over 40,000 crores. That's the figure given by the MEA to this House. Now, Honourable Deputy Speaker, to give that figure, 40,000 crores, some perspective, that is also nearly the same amount that this government allocated on paper to the Manrega scheme, the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Program, and they took credit saying this is the highest ever allocation in 2017-18 for this scheme. They didn't actually give all the money. That's the amount of money that seems to be on the books of our fugitive economic offenders. While the men and women of the country dependent on their daily wages are struggling with delayed payments because the government apparently doesn't have enough money to give the states to pay our Manrega workers, our white-collar economic offenders have got away from this country with impunity. And the fact is that given these abject circumstances, I must say that we had hoped for effective and workable legislation from this government to tackle this pressing issue with conviction. But is it already too little too late? As my friend Sri Premachandran has already pointed out, the biggest fugitives have already left the country. The government has failed to extradite them, and I'm going to come back to that. Vijay Mallya escaped 2 years ago. Nirav Modi fled in January 2018. He left the country. The government has failed to extradite them, and I'm going to come back to that. Vijay Mallya escaped 2 years ago. Nirav Modi fled in January 2018 after gleefully taking a photograph in Davos with our Prime Minister. Yes. It's interesting to hear the BJP speaker talk about Congress associations. The pictures are of apparently our own Prime Minister in his company. Jatin Mehta of Winsome Diamonds left for St. Kitts in 2016, and Lalit Modi benefited from a no-objection intervention by our own Minister of External Affairs in 2015, which was a big issue in this House just 3 years ago. They are all living in luxury abroad. हम आपकी सरकार से बस एक ही चीज पूछना चाहते हैं, किसका साथ, किसका विकास? But anyway, before analysing this bill, we must ask ourselves, what is the situation that necessitates the need to enact a particular kind of legislation? Now, normally there is a flaw in certain statutes or provisions that is being exploited by individuals to escape the law, then undoubtedly a legislative remedy is required. I'm sorry to say that there is absolutely no indication in this bill of a remedy or even a slightly progressive step to address the larger malaise in our regulatory and financial institutions. Instead, we have a poorly crafted draft which it seems little thought has been given to, and the entire exercise, I'm sorry to say, reeks of tokenism and political doublespeak. And I will explain, Mr. Chairman, why, because my problems with this bill are practical, legal and constitutional. Now, the statement of objects and reasons of the bill states that the existing civil and criminal provisions of the law are inadequate to deal with the problem of economic offenders fleeing our jurisdiction. So they're saying that when you have somebody absconding with the proceeds of crime, there are no laws to deal with it. That's absurd. There are very much existing laws. We have our Criminal Procedure Code, the CRPC. The question before us is to ask whether the proposed legislation is better than the present legal regime. What is the problem you are fixing? What are your improvements? I mean, the previous speaker at length went on about NPAs. First of all, the government's own figures confirm that the quantum of non-performing assets in the public sector banks in our country has more than doubled since they came to power. So they are the ones who bear the bulk of the burden of the NPAs. But more significantly, is the BJP seriously arguing that the bulk of these NPAs are due only to fugitive economic offenders? The NPA issue is a much bigger problem. We're very happy to have a debate on that in this House, Mr. Chairman. But the fact still remains that this is clearly not the problem that they can fix in this way. Now to the specific objections. First, under Section 82 of our existing Criminal Procedure Code, if any court has reason to believe that a person is evading a warrant issued by it, then it can require him to appear before the court within 30 days. And if he fails to do so, it's already in our law today, any property of the concerned person can be attached under Section 83. That's our present law. So what are they fixing? Under Section 10 of the bill, however, once an application has been filed to declare a person as a fugitive economic offender, this bill gives him 6 weeks to appear. And an additional period of 1 week may be given if his counsel appears on his behalf. So in fact, this bill actually gives a fugitive economic absconder and offender more time than the existing Criminal Procedure Code. Instead of 30 days, he's getting 7 weeks, 42 days. Now please explain the logic behind this generosity in the bill. Now under the bill, only if a person has a warrant issued against him for a scheduled offence involving 100 crores or more will he come under the ambit of this law. Now, this is a very interesting number. Where does it come from? With this threshold, it means somebody can swindle 80 crores, 90 crores, even 99.99 crores, and he would not attract any of the provisions of this law. Where on earth did our government decide that 100 crores is the only level at which we should take these people seriously? Under the Prevention of Money Laundering Act, which has already been referred to in this House, offences involving 1 crore or more are covered. 1 crore or more. It is important that this 100 crore threshold should be removed so as to ensure that all types of white-collar absconders are brought under the ambit of the law. See, I want to agree, Mr. Deputy Chairman, Deputy Speaker, we need a strong law to deal with fugitives and absconders. But at the same time, we have a constitutional ethos to preserve. We have a legal culture to preserve. We are a democracy, not some sort of tin pot dictatorship. We must have sufficient safeguards built into the law to prevent it from being used as a tool of harassment by the government. Now, if you look under Section 14A of the bill, once a person is declared a fugitive economic offender, then any court or tribunal in India may disallow such a person from putting forward or defending any civil claims in court. Any.